Once you've chosen your products and niche and built an audience, the next step is to create your own e-commerce store. This is an online storefront where you can show your different items and encourage sales. Being successful here is not just a matter of choosing the right design to begin with, but also thinking about how you're going to arrange and price your items to help them move. This ultimately comes down to a lot of psychology. When it comes to e-commerce website design, there is a single overriding goal which isn't always true of a regular site design. Of course, that objective is always to try and increase sales and increase profits, and this is probably actually more important. You'll also want it to look attractive, to be functional and easy to use, and to represent your brand in the right manner. But this is really just in service of creating a web design that helps you to make more sales. This means every single element in your site design should be encouraging more sales and pointing users in that direction. The old adage here is that good design should communicate and not decorate. If an element of your design isn't somehow getting people to keep browsing your store or to click on the buy button, then it has no place in your design. If you use the right development company or a good e-commerce builder or template, you should find the experience and expertise of the professionals informs their decisions and results in the best possible turnover and profits for you. In this regard, it's always worth spending a little more on a professional theme or on a proper development company. Unless you're a professional designer yourself, you won't be able to compete with an entire organization made up of experts who have the very best tools and the most experience. And any lack of professionalism in your site design is going to reduce the trust in your brand and make visitors less likely to buy. An e-commerce store, more than any other design, needs to look professional and have a sense of polish and sheen. The easiest way for most digital marketers to create their own e-commerce store will usually be to use a WordPress theme like WooCommerce. Now, WooCommerce is a theme and plugin combination that will transform an entire WordPress site into an online store. And this makes managing your store just as easy as managing any WordPress website. You can still get a professional design for your site, meanwhile, by hiring a professional designer to create your theme for you, or by buying one that you really like the looks of and you think will fit your brand. Now, you can download the free version of WooCommerce, the WooCommerce plugin, that is, from within the WordPress dashboard. Or you can buy the paid for version and you can buy the themes from woocommerce.com. There are other options too. For example, Shopify gives you a hosted e-commerce platform. And this means that the site will be located off your server, just like a profile on Facebook, for example. You then send your customers to that page where they can shop through your multiple products. And this can help make things a little easier and simpler to run. But it does ultimately mean that you lose a little of the freedom and flexibility that comes, with terms of your website design and how it all looks and how it all works, etc. And there are local versions, the Shopify.com if you're in the US, Shopify.co.uk if you're in the UK, and there are some other local versions as well. Now, do bear in mind that this is a paid for service, but there is a 14-day free trial at the time that I'm making this video. Either way, through choosing a well-known platform such as one of these, or Magento, which is magento.com, or BigCommerce, which is bigcommerce.com, will mean that you can find a large amount of support, free themes, plugins, and more that will help you sell. And some of these features can be incredibly useful, such as the ability to add widgets right there on your blog that promote your top items, for example. So don't steer away from the big players. Using these methods will help you to generate more sales by having a professional looking and performing website. Nevertheless, it's still always useful to understand the theory and principles behind it so that you can continue to implement best practices yourself, especially when it comes to aspects that fall outside the realm of design, such as price. Now, here's how the right combination of pricing, positioning, and design can help to make your items sell more effectively. And the first is contrast. Now, contrast can, of course, be aesthetic, and making choices such as using red buy buttons against a white background is a great way to make a particular element stand out and get more clicks. And this also comes down to color psychology, but we won't go into this right now. The other type of contrast refers to the way that you position items next to one another, with the objective being to place expensive items next to cheap ones. Why? Because this makes the cheap items appear even more affordable and the expensive items appear to be even more premium. Now, let's say you have a $10 tie next to a $50 tie. Someone who wants the very best tie might be all the more impressed by your premium offer, knowing that it's 5 times more expensive than the cheapest product. Meanwhile, someone who doesn't have as much money to spend and who feels guilty about buying a new tie can convince themselves that the $10 tie is a great deal. They can compromise and convince themselves that they're being sensible by choosing the cheap tie. They've saved $40 even though they're still buying something they might not have otherwise. This way, the right pricing can really help to sweeten a good deal. And a good e-commerce website design should take full advantage of that. Earlier on in this series, we described why it was so important to have multiple ranges of prices in order to attract a range of different types of buyers. When we looked at contrast, meanwhile, we saw that varying prices could be used to make items look like an even better bargain, or like they're of an even higher quality. But another very important reason to have cheaper items as well as more expensive ones is that it can be a great way to build trust. If someone has never bought from you before, they might feel concerned that the products won't arrive or they won't be as advertised. Even if they read your content and like it, they've no guarantee that what you're selling is going to be high quality or that the site will be secure from data leaks. Thus, they aren't going to want to spend $1,000 the first time they ever do business with you. But if you have an item that costs $5 and it's a product people will know, then someone might make that purchase because it's a small risk to take. Now you can demonstrate the quality of your service and save their details, making it much easier to sell bigger items in future. Another tip is to think about your top sellers and your smallest sellers and use this to inform the design of your store. Now, this is something that physical stores do a lot. They'll place their biggest drawers right at the back of the store. This way, people will come in to buy the thing they want, but to get there, they'll have to pass through all of the smaller items that you're also selling along the way, and hopefully they might buy something. Meanwhile, if you have items that aren't selling at all, then you can find inventive ways to make the most of it. Packing it in as a free incentive, for example, or selling it at a very discounted rate is a way to bring more people to your online store. This is less important for a dropshipping business model, of course, though, as there's no downside to being left with excess stock. What's important to consider when looking at an e-commerce website design is that in order to make a sale, you'll have to overcome certain psychological barriers. This is actually often the most important step in making a sale. These psychological barriers include such things as customers not wanting to spend any money and not being bothered to go through the process of checking out. Good e-commerce website development should take this into account first and foremost by making it as easy as possible for your customers to make purchases. This is why Amazon's buy with one click feature is so instrumental to their success. At the same time, Webmasters need to make the most of customers who have already overcome some of these barriers. So, when a customer commits to buy any item on your site, they will instantly become much more susceptible to increasing their order. Why? Because they've already decided to make a purchase. This is why physical retailers use POS, this is point of sale displays, that sell extra items while customers are in the queue. It's so easy for them to add extra things to their basket that it would be foolish to miss this opportunity. E-commerce sites can do the exact same thing by making it easy to add extra purchases at the checkout. Similarly is upselling, where you give your buyers the opportunity to upgrade their order once they're already buying. Once they've committed to buy, tell them how for just $10 more they could have the very best service or product instead of the cheaper but ultimately inferior option they're currently buying. It's the smart decision after all. Sometimes a buyer will want some of your items but not all of them. Other times they'll want to combine multiple items but won't want to pay extra for shipping or to pay full price when they're essentially buying in bulk. Thus, letting your customers combine their items into a single large order can often encourage more sales, and it's known as bundling. What's great about bundling is that it can also be used to sell additional items that they perhaps wouldn't otherwise have bought. Adding extra items to bundled packages is also a great way to shift unsold stock.